Hi, I'm Bob Iaculo. United Water believes that all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Youth sports injuries next on Caucus, New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by Berkeley College, New Jersey's credit unions, banking you can trust, United Water, making the planet sustainable is the best job on earth, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, Adler Aphasia Center, Celgene Corporation, committed to improving the lives of patients worldwide, and by Cohn Resnick, providing accounting, tax, and advisory services for more than 90 years. Promotional support provided by The Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, youth athletes are getting hurt at an alarming rate. Detecting these injuries can be really difficult, but there are signs that parents and coaches can really look for. Joining us in the studio to discuss the ways that we can help prevent youth-related sports injuries, we have Liz Romick, who is a physical therapist at Madison Spine and Physical Therapy. Dr. Patrick Roth, who is the chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery at Hackensack University Medical Center. Phil Ross is a master kettlebell instructor. And finally, Paul Simpson is 15 years old, freshman football player at Ridgewood High School, was diagnosed with a stress fracture earlier this year. I want to thank all of you for joining us, talking about youth-related sports injuries. Doctor, do we have, and by the way, lots of information throughout this show, websites, use them, right? So we're here for public broadcasting. We have two kids, 9 and 11, two boys involved in youth sports, see injuries every day. Sometimes we say, hey, it's part of it, no big deal. Do we have an epidemic of youth sports injuries?
I don't know if it's an epidemic, but...
Do we have a serious problem?
There's a problem.
What is it?
I think there's lots of problems. One is that in sports, starting at the professional level, working its way down, the intent is too much to win, to hurt. And I think we've lost sight of the beauty of sports and player development.
What do you mean hurt? Give me an example to hurt.
Well, I think, you know, in football, players hurl themselves at other players head first and injure their necks and lower backs doing that.
To hurt.
People overtrain in sports and get fatigue or stress fractures.
Whole range of things. You know, I was watching, and again, I don't like doing this, but I'll do it anyway. I was watching a show called, is it Friday Night Tykes? Is that the show that's, is that the show you know I'm talking about? No, yes. Friday Night, no, it's Tykes, guys.
Yes, it's the dance show.
It's the show that is a reality show. I think it's on the Esquire channel. Started watching it because I was fascinated by young kids playing football and the coaches, and I will tell you, check it out. Because you had multiple coaches telling kids, these kids are 9, 10, 11, go for the head. Take them out. I don't want to see him get up. Playing for the championship, trying to play to get to the championship. And these coaches knew that they knew they were on camera. And I don't want to make this an indictment of those particular coaches, but I wonder to what extent that is the exception or the rule in terms of the coaches out there and what they are teaching those, and not just in football, but football is such a violent sport in so many ways. Are we in fact teaching kids to, in fact, play to hurt? Is that your experience?
For my experience, no, not at all. All coaches taught us the right technique, and all they tell us before the game, make sure you have fun, make sure you just, they never say aim for the head. I've never heard that in my life.
Never heard that. But the
coaches.
overtraining issue. It's interesting. You had a stress fracture in your...
in my...
His lower back.
Because you treated him,
yes.
Right? When did you think you had a problem?
Well, it wasn't during football season. Football season, the pain was pretty bearable. I mean, I thought it was just like maybe I pulled a muscle or something. I didn't feel like I needed to tell anybody about it. I thought I could. I didn't want to stop playing. I wanted to keep playing.
Say that again?
I didn't want to stop playing. I liked playing the sport.
Well, so there it is. Keep going.
So I didn't tell anybody about it. And then during the off season, I started doing private baseball training, and that's when it started getting.
Switched over to baseball.
Yeah, very.
And in baseball, you have to turn the hip.
A lot of the hip.
You got to turn the hip and realize you can't turn the hip the way you needed to.
Yes.
Hey, there must be something going on. He has surgery then?
No, he didn't have surgery.
Did you have physical therapy? What happened?
I had physical therapy.
Even with a stress fracture? How do you, that's interesting. You're known by many in the field as very conservative. I don't mean politically. You do not opt for surgery very often, do you?
Depends on the circumstances.
A holistic approach?
I try, you know, in a child or a kid who's growing up, obviously try to avoid surgery. And my interest actually with this particular entity is to strengthen the core around the injury and therefore create an internal brace that prevents stressing what is already a stressed area.
Can we talk about core?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What is the core, and why is the core, our core, so connected to prevention of injuries? And then jump in. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is that if you look at the core by definition, it's your whole trunk. It's not just your abs. It's your hips, your back. This whole torso body is your core.
We should make it clear that you've spent years doing, was it competitive bodybuilding?
Well, I was actually a little bit of a past here. I spent since from 1979 until the year 2010, I was competitive on a national level in combat sports.
Combat sports. And you also did a lot of physical training.
A great deal.
Okay. Okay. Powerlifting as well?
I did powerlifting. I did do bodybuilding. I was successful in both of them.
Okay. And so the core means?
Core is our center of our body.
And what does that have to do with, what does that have to do with helping us prevent, particularly with young people who are involved in sports? What the heck does that have to do? And jump in, I'll come back to you.
I think that's an excellent question. Preventing injuries really is a spectrum of interventions. And probably the first one is identifying when there's a problem to begin with. So we see a lot of...
he said...
Exactly.
Didn't want to tell anyone because... Want to stay in the game.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So we see a lot of student athletes in our clinics and all 6 clinics that we have in Bergen County. And that pretty much is the story of everyone. No one wants to admit that something is wrong because they don't want to not play. So identifying when there's problems is the first step in preventing an injury. Then the second is identifying what may be causing that problem in the first place. And as a physical therapist, we often see that there are functional problems. Functional problems.
Example.
People, motor coordination, ability to do their job or their sport correctly. And I think that's something that you work with, especially when you train. Technique.
Yes.
And there's where your core comes in.
But why is technique or poor technique so closely correlated to a higher rate of sports injuries?
Well, the thing is, if you do not have the proper technique, how are you going to perform under duress? If your alignment is good,
your alignment.
the alignment. And we were talking about core before and why it's so important. Try to walk without using your core. Everything comes from the center out. The core, just in its name, is the center.
Okay, so the core is the key question. And this is, first of all, we need to make it clear you're a freshman playing, and you got called up to varsity along with some other freshmen. I never got called up as a freshman. I just want to be clear when I played. It was much later. Here's the question. Your training, how much of it was focused on here as opposed to whatever, lifting it, whatever, I don't know the routine you did, but how much was focused on your core?
There's actually a good amount focused on the core. We did a lot of like ab work as well as like back work.
Ab work. Why the ab work? You loved it, didn't you? I'm joking. And did you realize at the time how important that was to helping you prevent or minimize injury?
I didn't really at the time. It's just we had a certain rotation. We had like lat pull downs, like a lot of crunches, just like stuff to strengthen pretty much. They pretty much went for every part of your body to strengthen.
Did you mess with those kettlebells?
I did not. We do not have kettlebells in the
Do not.
gym.
Can you let me have over here, because I heard you have a shoulder injury. I had a bicep tendon tear. Can you appreciate that?
Right? I've heard of them.
You heard of it? Yeah, right. With the dumbbells,
okay.
you would know, right? These kettlebells, get a shot of this, Bob, because I'll be sweating in about 2 seconds. This is so much heavier than you think. Doctor, you are an advocate of kettlebells, are you not?
I am.
Make the case as I'm holding this and about to put it down very quickly.
Well,
Boom. Go ahead.
interestingly enough, I also, the stress fracture that Paul has, I have myself. And I played football in high school. And lived with back pain in my teens, actually throughout my career. When I was a kid, I happened to have something in my basement called a Roman chair, which is a back strengthening tool.
Chair.
And you know, with the innocence of a kid, I wandered downstairs to my basement when I was in pain and started to use it and discovered in myself that it would make my back feel better.
Hold on, is the Roman chair the straight up chair?
It's kind of a reverse sit-up machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you pull, don't you pull up?
No, you lie, face
flat.
down, your belly supported. You see people with their
Yes.
hands behind their head doing like backward sit-ups.
And that helped you?
It helped me. I didn't know why. I just did it, you know, experimentation of an innocent, naive kid. And kind of filed that in my memory banks. Didn't discover that I had a spondylolysis, which is the stress fracture of the lower back until I was
Same thing that
adult. Same thing that Paul has.
Wow.
And then I met someone in my town that happened to be a big kettlebell advocate and started telling me about it. And something made me connect the Roman chair as a kid to the kettlebells as an adult. And I started to learn about them. Actually, I started working with, I got Phil into him. He took it to a different level. And he started to train me and teach me about kettlebells, the proper form.
But why are they different? Let me ask you a question. Why are they different than simply having dumbbells and barbells and working with weights? You know, everything's, I'm sitting there going to the gym. There it is. Everything's right there. Everything is balanced nicely. I'm like, I don't have to balance this because it's not this. Everything's right there, right?
That's the main thing.
That's the problem. I like that part.
Well, and that's what's so appealing about standard training, because you feel you get a good pump, this, that, and the other thing. The thing that you have to think about is you said it exactly. Everything's balanced. It's balanced for you. The thing with the kettlebell is it's got a center of gravity, or what we call the COG.
What do you hold it like this? Okay.
Well, that's
Please tell me this is a 30, 35 pound.
It's 22 pounds.
Oh man, that's not a good sign. Okay. And what does one do with this?
Well, you do a myriad of movements. I mean, personally, I practice somewhere around 170 movements, or but there's a core of 6 or 7 movements.
But why is this different than working with a dumbbell?
So the reason this is different is that when you play a sport, your body and all of your muscles have to act coordinated in certain directions, three-dimensional. So a kettlebell will work in all of the planes, and it will train your body to sustain forces, which can cause fatigue, and fatigue causes
because you don't know where
injury.
that. So if I'm taking this thing, Bob, get a shot of this. So if I'm trying to move this around, okay,
the body has to compensate.
Oh my
for the
God,
movement.
how hard this is.
The center of gravity of the bell changes. The center of gravity of the bell changes.
Yes.
And the body has to compensate for that. And it compensates for that by recruiting all your different stabilizers. So, and that's why when you had that universal, that unilateral distribution of weight, how often do you have that in sports? Let me think. Never.
You know what you're saying? You're saying in sports, man, I am really sweating now. What you're saying is that when you're working on the universal, or you're working on a Nautilus, or you're working on bars that have the exact amount of weight on each end, that is not comparable to what a young person or anyone would face in a sports-related situation, because things are coming at you at all different directions.
Correct.
Now, you want to start working with this thing? Do you think it would help you?
From what I've heard, yes, I think it would.
Steve, I will also tell you this, because I also had a very similar experience as Dr. Roth did. When I was 16, I was playing football. I got speared, broke 3 bones in my back, and because I was...
Speared means someone with a helmet?
Yes.
Led with a helmet into your back?
Into my back. Yeah, we were scrimmaging Bayonne. And,
we don't have to say who the team is, but now we lost our audience in Bayonne, but go ahead. Go ahead.
So, or maybe it was Belleville, I don't know.
No, yeah, Belleville, they're rough, trust me, go ahead.
And just like Paul, I wanted to make an impression, so I stayed in the game, and of course,
yes.
I'm gonna be a tough guy,
God,
right?
I hear you.
So I compressed 3 vertebrae, and then I went home and I couldn't even walk.
There it is.
Yep. I was advised that I wasn't not going to be able to do sports the rest of my life. And,
Is that right?
At 16.
At 16?
Yeah.
So listen, you tell your experience. You tell yours. You don't want to say anything. I've had more ridiculous injuries than I don't want to even talk about. I had the laminectomy, shoulder, bicep tendon tear, a million different things. Here's the thing. What advice do we have for parents right now who, I told my 11-year-old the other day, he was complaining, he was running down to first base in a travel baseball game, and I saw him holding his hip. And I don't remember him hurting his hip. But he was running down to first base holding his hip, and I said, Nick, what's up? He goes, I think I hurt my hip. I said, when? He goes, I don't know, but it's hurting me. I said, Nick, listen, just stretch it out a little bit. I'm sure you'll be fine. I don't know if it was the right advice or not, but I thought to myself, what should I have just done right then? I want him to tough it out, but I don't want to have him increase the odds of something bad happening. Give advice to parents right now who have to take charge of their kid because the coach is not in charge, the parent is, correct?
Well, parent is definitely in charge, and there's never, like all of parenting, there's never a right or wrong answer. You know, each decision has to be individualized, and you have to take into context many things. How important is for many parents, I guess they envision their children as future professional athletes. Obviously,
What's wrong with that?
It's just an unrealistic goal.
Say if the kid says he or she wants it.
Nothing wrong with dreaming, but if you look statistically, it's just not a realistic goal.
Yeah, the kid says he or she wants it. The kid says, give me an opportunity. Let me get out there. I know that I pulled this or that, and I know that this is bothering me, but I can tough this out. I'm tougher than these other kids. You say, as a parent?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do in this scenario is that the child should be evaluated by someone,
Diagnosed.
a physician,
Yes.
to rule out any very terrible injury.
Okay, so you don't have the terrible injury, but you have some injury
right.
that requires a certain amount, okay,
Yes.
realistic, gray area, requires a certain amount of healing and rest based on a best practice from protocol. But a championship game is coming up, and the kid says, wait a minute, this is the state championship game, and you want me to sit out this game? This is the game that could help us win the championship. I could get a college scholarship, and you're telling me I can't play, you say?
Well, it depends on the extent of the injury. If someone has a severe injury, then you have to balance whether you want someone to have a permanent injury. It's a judgment call.
I know everything's case by case, but in the end, are we saying that we should be teaching parents, promoting the parents, err on the side of sitting the kid out?
Okay, Steve, I'll tell you something. My son is one of the top shot putters in the country. He's going to Dartmouth next year.
If you must say so yourself, go ahead. We're very proud of him. Tremendous. That's congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Last year, it was the state championships. He was predicted to, be
track and field.
Track and field, indoor shot, and he had slipped in the circle prior to in the meet qualifying. It was the meet of champions, and he had slipped in the circle and hurt himself. And you know what? This is a great showcase for him. But you know what I did? I yanked him.
You pulled him.
Pulled him.
In a big competition like that?
Absolutely.
What was his reaction?
At first, I can do it. And then I'm like, yeah. I go, let me see. And he couldn't perform, and he was going to underperform, and B, he was going to make the injury worse, and then it would affect him how he's going to do in the spring.
So it isn't just how bad the injury as it is at the time. I don't know what it is, because I know you're spinning around. Could have been a hamstring, could have been a groin, could have been anything. I don't know what it was. But here's the thing. It may not be real serious at first, but if you compete and play when it's like that, doctor, it could get worse. Isn't that part of the issue here?
It's an issue, but I think one thing to understand is that, let's just take back pain for an example here, because that's what Paul had. The vast majority of back pain, even that kids get, is not an injury. It's just part of life. Yes. People get back pain. So you have to sort out what is an injury and what is just part of life. And you don't jump into an MRI, for example. If someone has back pain, perhaps the first way that should be treated is through instructional therapy. And we talked about before, one of the things I just wanted to elaborate on something we talked about before with the kettlebell. One of the most important things that a kettlebell does, we talked about the center of gravity changing and the unpredictability of sports. That's all true. But the fundamental thing that I think that patients get out of kettlebells for back pain, and this is an important point, is understanding the difference between back bending and hip hinging.
Say it again, back bending and hip.
So probably no one ever thinks about that. When you bend down to pick up something off the floor, your back is, your body is going through three simultaneous things. One is you're bending your legs.
Should we show this?
We could show it.
Hey, Bob, does this screw you up? Terry, you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Go ahead, Phil.
Phil's fantastic with the form, but anyway, so just show them what it's like to first back bend.
Here's what most people do. They go to pick something up. I have people walk in my studio all the time. Let's say I want to pick up this cup. Most people do it like that.
What's wrong with that?
About 1,000 things. First of all, I'm taking the spine needs to be lined up like this.
Right.
Here it's very supportive. It's called a neutral spine. You want to maintain that neutral spine no matter what. So if I bend my back any way, I'm now taking myself out of the neutral spine position.
Are you increasing the chance that you could injure yourself?
Absolutely. And the other thing is that I'm creating that muscle memory in my back and promoting like a ligament laxity.
Well, give me a better way to pick up that cup. Everyone check this out. So wait a minute, you bent.
I hip hinge.
You hip hinge.
And this is what kettlebells does. The number one thing with the kettlebell swing is the hip hinge.
And do that thing again. Do that thing again.
Yeah. I call it the karate chop to the hips. But let me show you this. Look at the position I'm in. This is an athletic position.
Yes.
Whether you're playing tennis,
yes,
whether you're wrestling, football, second base,
ready.
Whatever. I'm ready to roll. Okay? What am I ready to do here? Fall on my face? Hurt myself?
But someone says, I'm just picking up a cup. What are you talking about?
Well, I'll tell you this, Steve, when I was deadlifting over 400, 500 pounds, okay?
Yeah, I was doing that last week. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I turned and I picked up a box, an empty box.
Yes.
Grabbed it like this, and I threw my back out.
Hold on, you got the 450 pounds deadlifting.
Picking it up like nothing.
Then you pick up the box.
Boom, back went out for 3 days.
Jump in, because I see you have something. Go ahead. You were deadlifting 450.
Yesterday, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the thing to remember, though, is that it's very important that whoever you work with or however you work out, that you have someone who understands function and understands efficient motion. So we're talking about how to prevent, exactly. Children don't have any idea.
Where would a kid get access to that information?
So they need to work with qualified professionals. So as physical therapists, professionals, we know how a body is supposed to work efficiently to avoid fatigue stress. And fatigue stress is how you get injured.
But
so
the
kettlebell in
itself,
itself,
the most access to them.
Yes,
is
but they may or may not be qualified to identify whether a child can move properly.
Are we then saying, for parents,
yes,
our primary audience,
yes,
doesn't mean we don't want to talk to kids and coaches, we do, and physicians, medical community, that a parent needs to try to, because this is the advice, a parent needs to try to help their child get the best access to information about?
Yes, movement and function. Do they move and do they function normally to be able to do their sport? This is what I see in my clinic all the time. I see dancers, I see gymnasts, I see fencers, and all of them have when they get injured, if it wasn't a traumatic injury from playing football,
right?
If it wasn't a traumatic injury, just an overuse injury, their problem is they don't move efficiently. They haven't proper core stabilization, good foot control, they're not in proper balance.
But they're doing the same thing.
Yes,
one of our coaches told the kids the other day, if you want to be the best second baseman, the best pitcher, the best whatever, do whatever it is 100 times, 200 times a day, which makes perfect sense on paper. The problem is, if you're throwing a ball against the wall 100 times a day, but you were doing it with the wrong technique, doctor, what's the problem with that in terms of injuries?
Well, it's exactly what Paul's injury is. Paul has a fatigue fracture of his spine. So it wasn't an injury necessarily from a single event or single thing that happened, but just over time, doing something repetitively. And that combined with, a growing child's body mechanics and the anatomical configuration of his spine led to fatigue and a stress fracture.
Paul, let me ask you something. How old are you right now?
I am 15.
15. Tough question, I know. You love football?
Yes.
You want to play football?
Yes.
What changes do you think you will make, if any, to try to prevent future injuries?
I definitely need to work on my technique more. I mean, for an offensive lineman, the pass blocking, first of all, whenever I felt pain like in my lower back, it was always because I was taking a hit going like this, and I always had my feet set wrong.
You're 5'7", 185 pounds as we speak today.
Yes.
You have to work on what? Because some of those defensive linemen will be 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe.
We played some big kids this year, yes.
Big kids, okay.
I've ended up against a 6'5" kids, very large kids.
So technique for you, what does that have to do with, for you in your mind, protecting yourself against injury?
Because, I mean, I also still have to work on muscle development and other things just so I can actually, play against these kids. But, I mean, if I don't have the right technique, I feel like I'm putting myself at at a higher risk of hurting myself.
Here's another thing you have to do, isn't there? You know what it is. Next time you feel something, what are you going to do?
Tell somebody.
I mean, forget about telling me. But seriously, don't say it because you're on public television. you know what you need to do, right? And your other colleagues that you play, other teammates, that's part of the issue too, right?
Yeah. I mean, a small part. Like, if you like...
2 seconds left, go ahead.
If you're injured and it's not as bad of an injury as you thought and you report it, you seem kind of weakish.
You see, oh boy, oh, like, and on that note, you know, I appreciate your candor because as long as young people have the attitude that reporting an injury makes them look weaker, that means we have more programming to do, that means we have more public awareness and education to do, but I want to thank all of you for being with us. Stay healthy, young man. Good job.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Berkeley College, New Jersey's credit unions, United Water, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, Adler Aphasia Center, Celgene Corporation, and by Cohn Resnick. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
I'm Paul Susek, Berkeley College class of 2002, Senior Marketing Manager, ESPN.
Carla McDonald, class of 2012, Senior Client Associate, UBS Financial.
Veronica Mormando, class of 95, Chief Operating Officer, PS Finance.
Tama Iguelas, class of 2006, Director, The Voice of Liberia.
From different walks of life, many of our students succeed in different ways, yet their first step is exactly the same: Berkeley College.